Dr. Brielle Carter steps into the hotel lobby, her heels striking the marble with quiet certainty. The air is heavy, thick with the kind of tension that doesn't need words. Conversations hush as she passes. Eyes flicker over her tailored dress, and a receptionist's practiced smile falters just for a moment before returning. A guest lowers his newspaper, gaze lingering on her as if measuring her place in the room. The polished floor glimmers beneath her feet, reflecting her presence but never her worth. Every gesture from staff and guests forms an invisible barrier, subtle but unmistakable. The bellhop's grip tightens on his luggage cart, his eyes darting away when she glances over. Behind the front desk, the concierge's pen pauses mid-signature, her posture stiffening as she watches Brielle approach. A mother gently guides her child aside, a silent lesson passed down in a single motion. Brielle's posture remains composed, her expression unreadable, dignity her only armor. She moves forward with purpose, feeling the weight of exclusion in every step. The marble echoes with the history of those who were told without a word that they did not belong. In this space, power is silent, but its presence is everywhere. In the way the elevator doors seem to close a little faster, in the way a manager's eyes skim past her, searching for someone else. Every moment in this lobby is a test, every stare is a reminder of boundaries drawn without words. The lobby holds its breath, waiting to see if she will falter, if she will question her right to be here. Brielle does not. She advances, unbroken, her resolve a quiet answer to every cold stare, every unspoken challenge. The marble beneath her feet is cold, but her presence is undeniable. A silent force that cannot be erased, no matter how many times the world tries to look past her. Before the story continues, please let us know from where you are watching this video. Write your city or country in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit like if you believe in stories that challenge injustice. Your engagement gives power to voices that need to be heard. Derek Vaughn, the security guard, stands directly in Brielle's path as she approaches the entrance to the conference wing. His stance is rigid, feet planted wide, arms crossed over his chest. The gold badge on his uniform catches the lobby lights, a silent signal of authority. He doesn't ask for her name, doesn't offer a greeting. Instead, he lifts his chin, gaze fixed just above her eyes, as if refusing to acknowledge her presence fully. The hum of the lobby fades, replaced by a quiet tension that settles between them. Guests drift past, some watching with faint curiosity, others pretending not to notice. A man in a navy suit hesitates, then slips around the standoff, his briefcase brushing Brielle's arm. Derek's fingers tap a slow rhythm against his sleeve, impatience masked as routine. He gestures toward a side hallway without looking at her. The message is clear. This entrance is not for you. Brielle's breath is steady, her shoulders squared. She waits, refusing to step aside or explain herself. The moment stretches, heavy with expectation. Derek's jaw tightens, a muscle flickering beneath his skin. He finally breaks the silence, voice clipped and formal, asking for credentials he never requested from the guests before her. Each word is a barrier, each pause a test. Across the lobby, the concierge glances up, her eyes meeting Brielle's, for a brief moment of shared understanding. The bellhop shifts his weight, uncomfortable, but says nothing. The receptionist pretends to be busy with paperwork, her pen moving in nervous circles. Brielle stands her ground, dignity unshaken. The guard's authority feels brittle now, the power in his posture beginning to crack beneath the weight of her calm refusal. In this quiet confrontation, the rules of belonging are rewritten, not with noise, but with the simple act of not moving. A hush settles over the lobby, thick as velvet and twice as suffocating. The scene between Brielle and Derek draws attention without a word. Guests pause mid-stride, their conversations trailing off as they sense the charged air. Some glance over their shoulders, others study their shoes, unwilling to witness but unable to look away. The receptionist's fingers hover uncertainly above her keyboard, her posture rigid. The bellhop lingers by the elevator, shifting his stance and glancing at the unfolding standoff, a crease of worry between his brows. Derek's jaw is set, his eyes flicking to the security camera above as if seeking silent backup. He clears his throat, the sound sharp in the quiet. Brielle stands motionless, her gaze unwavering, chin lifted just so. The power in the room teeters, balanced on the edge of her composure and his insistence. Every second stretches. The silence, pressing in on all sides. A woman in a red scarf, waiting for her check-in, catches Brielle's eye and offers a small, sympathetic nod. Across the marble, Shanice, the concierge, draws a slow breath, her hand tightening around a stack of reservation cards. The manager, visible through the glass doors of a nearby office, pauses mid-conversation, his attention drawn to the tableau outside. No one speaks, but the tension is a living thing, pulsing beneath the surface. Brielle's calm becomes a shield, her presence a quiet challenge to the rules that have always gone unquestioned. Derek's confidence wavers, a flicker of uncertainty passing through his eyes before he reasserts his stance, feet planted even firmer. The lobby holds its collective breath, the moment suspended between confrontation and surrender. In this heavy pause, the humanity of everyone present is on trial, not just Brielle's. The outcome hangs in the balance, waiting for someone to break the spell. The manager emerges from his glass-walled office, drawn by the stillness that has overtaken the lobby. His steps are brisk, shoes barely making a sound on the marble. He approaches the standoff, eyes flicking from Derek's rigid stance to Brielle's composed figure. The manager's hand tightens around a folder, knuckles paling as he sizes up the situation. He addresses Derek first, voice low and measured, asking what's going on. Derek's response is clipped, his words wrapped in official language as he insists on seeing identification. He doesn't look at Brielle, focusing instead on the badge pinned to his own uniform. The manager's gaze shifts to Brielle, searching for an explanation, but she offers none. Instead, she calmly reaches into her bag, producing a gold-embossed badge. Its surface catches the lobby lights, the engraved title unmistakable, Event Organizer. The shift is immediate. The manager's face drains of color, his posture faltering as he recognizes the mistake. He stammers out a greeting, voice suddenly deferential. Derek's eyes widen, his authority slipping as he realizes what he's done. A bead of sweat forms at his temple, his hand dropping from its defensive fold. The receptionist, watching from behind her desk, lets out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. The bellhop straightens, relief flickering across his face. Shanice, the concierge, allows herself a small, knowing glance at Brielle, pride hidden in the curve of her lips. The manager apologizes, words tumbling over each other, but the damage is done. Derek mumbles something about standard practice, his voice barely audible. The moment hangs, heavy with the weight of exposed truth. Brielle's badge glints between them, a silent rebuke more powerful than any argument. In that instant, the power in the lobby shifts. The rules are rewritten, and the apology comes too late to erase what everyone has just seen. Brielle's lips curve into a small, deliberate smile, a gesture both gentle and unmistakably firm. The manager, still flustered, gestures for her to proceed, his voice shaky as he assures her that everything is now in order. He tries to recover his composure, smoothing his tie, but the effort only highlights his discomfort. Derek stands rooted, the authority that once seemed so solid now eroded by the weight of his own actions. His hands, once confidently folded, now hang awkwardly at his sides. Guests resume their movements, but the mood has shifted. Conversations are hushed, glances exchanged with new awareness. The receptionist busies herself with paperwork, but her eyes flick up, watching Brielle cross the lobby with measured steps. The bellhop offers a respectful nod as she passes, the gesture subtle but genuine. Shanice, at the concierge desk, allows herself a quiet exhale, her shoulders relaxing for the first time that morning. Brielle walks forward, her posture unyielding, her presence now impossible to overlook. The marble beneath her feet seems to echo with a new kind of certainty. Derek's gaze drops, his confidence replaced by a visible unease. The manager lingers near the entrance, watching her progress with a mixture of relief and regret. A child previously hushed by his mother now watches Brielle with wide eyes, sensing the change even if he cannot name it. The lobby, moments ago, a stage for exclusion, now feels charged with the first tremors of accountability. Every staff member, every guest, carries the memory of what just happened, a warning that the old ways will no longer go unchallenged. Brielle's smile lingers as she disappears into the conference hall, leaving behind a lobby forever altered by a single, quiet act of resolve. The reckoning has begun, and everyone knows it. Later that day, Brielle sits alone in her hotel room, the city's muted hum filtering through the window. She opens her laptop, scrolling through months of archived emails. Each message is polite, professional, and distant. Her name is misspelled in subject lines, her requests for resources met with vague promises or redirected to another department. The language is careful, always couched in corporate courtesy, but the intent is unmistakable. Her achievements are minimized, her authority quietly undermined by suggestions that she coordinate with others or wait for approval. She pauses on one thread marked Resolved. The issue a missing shipment for a previous event was never addressed. The reply thanks her for her patience, offers no solution, and closes the conversation with a hollow assurance that her concerns matter. Brielle's jaw tightens as she scrolls further, each message a reminder of doors closed before she could even knock. A notification pops up, another automated response, this time about a budget request. She reads it twice, the words blurring, into a familiar pattern of dismissal. The digital trail is long and winding, each step a quiet denial of her place at the table. She highlights the most telling exchanges, saving them in a folder labeled Receipts. Outside her door, the hallway is quiet. Downstairs, the lobby bustles on, unaware of the small acts of erasure that accumulate in inboxes and meeting notes. Brielle leans back, eyes closed for a moment, letting the weight of it settle. She is tired, but not defeated. She clicks through the final email, her resolve hardening. The system may be practiced in polite exclusion, but she knows now that every overlooked message is a piece of evidence. The paper trail is no longer just a record of what was denied, it's the foundation for what comes next. A memory surfaces as Brielle walks the corridor lined with event posters. She stops, eyes landing on a photograph from last year's summit. The keynote speaker, a respected black scientist, stands at the podium, but the banner above him reads his name wrong, 2 letters switched, his title omitted. Brielle recalls the awkward laughter when someone pointed it out. The organizers rushed assurances that it would be fixed. It never was. The error hovered over every session, a constant reminder of whose presence was easily dismissed. She remembers, watching the speaker's smile tighten as he posed for photos, his gratitude tempered by disappointment. Guests whispered apologies, but no one took responsibility. The mistake was explained away as a simple oversight, yet the impact lingered. The scientist's achievements were celebrated in speeches, but his identity was never truly seen. Brielle runs her fingers along the edge of the faded banner, feeling the roughness where the letters peel. The event photographer, a young woman with a careful eye, catches Brielle's gaze and offers a small, regretful shrug. Staff hurry past, arms full of new signage, careful not to meet her eyes. In the break room, a group of volunteers discuss the mix-up in low voices. One shakes his head, saying, "They always get it wrong." Another sighs, "He deserved better." Their words drift down the hall, joining the hum of preparation for this year's summit. Brielle stands in the quiet, the memory heavy but instructive. The error on the banner was never just a typo, it was a signal, a public record of who is valued and who is overlooked. She takes a photo of the old sign, adding it to her growing file of evidence. The past is not forgotten. It is fuel for the change she intends to make. In a quiet moment between sessions, Brielle finds herself in the staff lounge, sharing coffee with Mr. Enrique Salazar, the hotel's longtime janitor. His hands are rough from years of work, but his grip is gentle as he sets down his mug. He tells her about his daughter's graduation last spring, a day he'd anticipated with pride. Dressed in his best suit, he arrived early, only to be handed a stack of programs by an usher who assumed he was there to help. Enrique's voice is soft, his eyes cast downward as he describes how he spent the first hour directing guests, his daughter's name echoing faintly from the auditorium. No one questioned the mistake. When he finally slipped inside to watch her cross the stage, he stood in the back, unnoticed. The memory stings, not for the labor, but for the assumption that he belonged behind the scenes, never in the spotlight. Brielle listens, her expression open and attentive. She offers no platitudes, only a nod of understanding. The lounge is filled, with the quiet clatter of dishes, the low hum of conversation, but their exchange is a world apart. A housekeeper pauses nearby, listening in, her brow furrowed in empathy. Enrique shrugs, a small, resigned smile on his lips. "It happens," he says, as if that explains everything. Brielle meets his gaze, her resolve deepening. These moments, so easily dismissed by others, are the foundation of the system she's determined to challenge. As she leaves the lounge, Brielle carries Enrique's story with her, another piece of the puzzle. The pain of being mistaken for help at his own celebration lingers in the air, a quiet injustice that demands acknowledgement. She adds his account to her growing list, each story a step toward something better. In a dimly lit office tucked behind the front desk, Brielle sifts through a stack of personnel documents, searching for answers. The air smells faintly of toner and old paper. She finds Derek Vaughn's file, thicker than most, its edges worn from years of handling. Inside, she discovers a pattern. Guest reports describing curt treatment, notes from coworkers about uncomfortable encounters, and a handful of formal complaints. Each document is stamped addressed or no further action. The ink faded, but the message was clear. Brielle flips through the pages, noticing how each complaint is followed by a brief note from management, always the same. Reminded of expectations, reviewed procedures, matter closed, no record of real consequences, no evidence of change. The file is a graveyard of concerns, buried quietly and left to gather dust. A junior HR assistant enters to drop off more files, pausing when she sees Brielle at the desk. Her hands tremble slightly as she sets the folders down, eyes darting to the open file. She hesitates, then whispers, "You're not the first to ask." The words hang in the air, heavy with implication, before she slips away. Brielle lingers over one complaint from a young guest, the handwriting shaky, but determined. The note describes being questioned repeatedly about her room, made to feel unwelcome. The response from management is curt, the issue dismissed as a misunderstanding. As Brielle closes the file, she feels the weight of every story left unresolved. Derek's confidence, she realizes, was never challenged because the system allowed it to thrive. The documents are evidence not just of one man's behavior, but of an institution's quiet complicity. She tucks the file into her bag, resolving sharpening. These complaints will not disappear again. The truth, once uncovered, cannot be filed away. The lobby is busy with guests checking in, luggage wheels rolling over tile, and phones ringing at the front desk. Amid the bustle, Shanice Green, the concierge, keeps her eyes on the entrance. She watches as another guest is greeted warmly, ushered through without hesitation. When Brielle passes by, Shanice's posture shifts, her shoulders tightening ever so slightly. She leans toward a colleague, voice barely above a whisper. "This always happens." The words are soft, almost swallowed by the noise, but the pain behind them is unmistakable. Her colleague, a young man with nervous energy, glances at Brielle, then quickly back to his computer screen. He nods, lips pressed in a thin line. The exchange is brief, but it carries the weight of shared experience. Neither looks up as a manager strides past, clipboard in hand, oblivious to the quiet conversation unfolding at the desk. Shanice's hands move methodically over the reservation cards, her face composed, but her eyes are tired. She greets the next guest with practiced warmth, masking the frustration simmering beneath the surface. Every day, she witnesses the same pattern. Certain guests questioned, others waved through, the difference as predictable as the morning rush. A bellhop pauses nearby, catching the end of Shanice's whisper. He offers a sympathetic glance but says nothing, understanding that some truths are too risky to voice aloud. Brielle, sensing the tension, meets Shanice's gaze for a fleeting moment. In that silent exchange, there is recognition, solidarity, and a promise that these moments will not go unnoticed forever. As the lobby returns to its routine, Shanice's quiet words linger, a reminder that injustice thrives not just in grand gestures, but in the daily rituals of who is welcomed and who is doubted. In a small windowless room off the main hallway, Brielle sits with the hotel's night manager as security footage plays on a muted monitor. The screen flickers through hours of lobby activity, guests arriving, staff moving briskly, the steady rhythm of daily operations. She watches Derek at the entrance, noting how he greets some guests with a nod and a wave, barely glancing at their badges. Others, especially those who look like her, are stopped, questioned, sometimes turned aside. The pattern is unmistakable. Brielle leans forward, eyes narrowing as she observes Derek's posture shift depending on who approaches. His stance is relaxed for some, guarded for others. The night manager, a middle-aged woman with a cautious manner, fidgets with her pen, glancing between Brielle and the screen. "You see it too, don't you?" she asks quietly, her voice tinged with guilt. Brielle doesn't answer right away. She rewinds a segment, watching as a white guest breezes in, greeted with a casual gesture, while a black attendee is halted, credentials scrutinized. The footage is silent, but the message is clear. The night manager sighs, shoulders slumping. "No one ever wants to put it in writing," she murmurs, almost to herself. A maintenance worker enters to collect a set of keys, pausing when he sees the footage. He nods at Brielle, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. The moment is brief, but it adds another layer to the quiet understanding shared by those who witness these patterns every day. Brielle requests a copy of the recordings, her tone calm but firm. The night manager hesitates, then agrees, sliding a USB drive across the desk. As Brielle leaves the room, the images linger in her mind, evidence not just of one man's choices, but of a system that has long depended on what goes unseen. Brielle sits at a long table in the administrative office, a stack of security logs and guest lists spread before her. The room is quiet except for the soft shuffle of paper and the faint ticking of a wall clock. She scans the lists, eyes moving line by line. Her name is nowhere to be found, though she organized the summit. Other attendees are marked VIP, their names highlighted and annotated with special privileges. The omission is not accidental. It is a deliberate erasure, a silent message about who matters. A young administrative assistant enters, arms full of folders. She sets them down, glancing at Brielle with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "If you need anything else, just ask," she says, voice tentative. Brielle nods, her focus never wavering from the documents. She circles the blank spaces where her name should appear, each mark a quiet indictment. The assistant hesitates, then leans closer. "Sometimes names get left off on purpose," she whispers, almost apologetically. Her words hang in the air, heavy with implication. Brielle offers a small, appreciative nod, acknowledging the risk in speaking up. Across the hall, a manager peers in, eyes narrowing as he sees Brielle's red pen moving over the logs. He quickly looks away, retreating into his office. The administrative assistant lingers a moment longer, then returns to her work, her shoulders tense. Brielle gathers the marked pages, her resolve hardening with every omission she uncovers. The logs, meant to ensure order and security, have become a map of exclusion, each missing name a testament to a system that decides who is visible and who is not. She slips the documents into her bag, determined that these vanished names will no longer be overlooked. In a quiet corner of the hotel cafe, Lila Kim, a reporter with a keen eye for patterns, flips through her battered notebook. Pages are filled with scribbled dates, case numbers, and fragments of conversations. She sips her coffee, scanning old news clippings and court documents spread across the table. Each headline tells a similar story. Discrimination claims settled quietly, plaintiffs' names forgotten, the hotel's reputation carefully protected. Leila highlights a passage from a deposition, her pen pausing on a line describing unfair treatment at check-in. She recalls a phone interview with a former employee who spoke in hushed tones, afraid of retaliation. "You don't talk about these things here," he'd said, voice trembling. Leila writes the quote in the margin, underlining it twice. A waiter approaches, placing a fresh cup of coffee beside her. He glances at the stack of papers, recognition flickering in his eyes. "You're looking into the old lawsuits?" he asks quietly. Leila nods, offering a tired smile. He leans in, lowering his voice. "My cousin filed one, never got her job back." The admission is brief but loaded with unspoken history. As Leila organizes her notes, she notices how many cases ended with non-disclosure agreements. The settlements brought silence, not justice. She jots down the names of attorneys, cross-referencing them with her files. Each connection reveals another layer of the hotel's careful image management. She snaps a photo of the documents, saving them for her story. The truth she knows rarely makes headlines. It lives in margins, in whispered confessions, in the steady accumulation of stories too similar to be coincidence. Leila closes her notebook, resolves sharpening. The shadows may be deep, but her reporting will bring them into the light. Late at night, Brielle sits at her laptop, the glow of the screen reflecting in her tired eyes. She scrolls through a growing thread of anonymous posts on a community forum dedicated to conference experiences. One after another, stories appear. "I was told to use the service elevator. Security checked my bag, but not theirs. They said my badge must be a mistake." Each confession is brief, but the pain behind the words is unmistakable. The posts multiply, each one echoing the last. A woman describes being asked to wait outside while others were welcomed in. Another recalls being questioned about her credentials, her expertise doubted in front of colleagues. The details differ, but the pattern is clear. The internet becomes a confessional, a digital gathering place for those who have been quietly sidelined. Brielle recognizes some of the names and avatars, colleagues and peers who never spoke of these moments in person. She adds her own story, typing carefully. Organized the summit. Was stopped at the door. Within minutes, replies appear, offers of solidarity, shared outrage, and quiet thanks for speaking up. A moderator pins the thread, encouraging others to share. The collective pain grows louder, impossible to ignore. Screenshots of emails, photos of event badges, and snippets of security footage are uploaded, building a mosaic of exclusion that no official statement can erase. As Brielle reads, she feels a mix of sadness and resolve. The testimonies are not just complaints. They are evidence, a record of what so many have endured in silence. She saves the thread, knowing it will be crucial for what comes next. The voices, once scattered and isolated, now form a chorus demanding to be heard. Morning light filters through Brielle's window as she sits at her desk, documents neatly arranged beside her laptop. She reviews the evidence one last time, screenshots of emails, photos of altered banners, copies of security logs, and the growing thread of online testimonies. Each file is carefully labeled, every detail checked twice. Her hands move with steady purpose, attaching the files to a new email addressed to the hotel's board of directors. She pauses before writing, searching for the right words. Her message is direct, each sentence precise. She outlines the patterns she's uncovered, the stories that have surfaced, and the evidence that ties it all together. There is no anger in her tone, only a quiet insistence on truth. She asks for accountability, for change, and for a response that goes beyond empty assurances. A notification dings as the email is sent. Brielle leans back, watching the spinning icon as her message travels to the board's inbox. Down the hall, the administrative assistant checks her computer, eyes widening as she sees the attachments piling in. She glances around, uncertain, before forwarding the email to her supervisor. The chain of command awakens, each recipient reading with growing unease. In the boardroom, a director opens the email on his tablet, his expression tightening as he scrolls through the evidence. He exchanges a look with a colleague, both recognizing the gravity of what's been presented. The usual routine is disrupted, the weight of proof impossible to dismiss. Brielle closes her laptop, exhaling slowly. The system, so practiced in deflection and delay, is forced to confront itself. The evidence is no longer scattered or hidden. It sits in the board's inbox, demanding a reckoning. For the first time, the balance of power begins to shift, not with a confrontation, but with a single undeniable message. Morning light filters through Brielle's window as she sits at her desk, documents neatly arranged beside her laptop. She reviews the evidence one last time. Screenshots of emails, photos of altered banners, copies of security logs, and the growing thread of online testimonies. Each file is carefully labeled, every detail checked twice. Her hands move with steady purpose, attaching the files to a new email addressed to the hotel's board of directors. She pauses before writing, searching for the right words. Her message is direct, each sentence precise. She outlines the patterns. She's uncovered the stories that have surfaced and the evidence that ties it all together. There is no anger in her tone, only a quiet insistence on truth. She asks for accountability, for change, and for a response that goes beyond empty assurances. A notification dings as the email is sent. Brielle leans back, watching the spinning icon as her message travels to the board's inbox. Down the hall, the administrative assistant checks her computer, eyes widening as she sees the attachments piling in. She glances around, uncertain, before forwarding the email to her supervisor. The chain of command awakens, each recipient reading with growing unease. In the boardroom, a director opens the email on his tablet, his expression tightening as he scrolls through the evidence. He exchanges a look with a colleague, both recognizing the gravity of what's been presented. The usual routine is disrupted, the weight of proof impossible to dismiss. Brielle closes her laptop, exhaling slowly. The system, so practiced in deflection and delay, is forced to confront itself. The evidence is no longer scattered or hidden. It sits in the board's inbox, demanding a reckoning. For the first time, the balance of power begins to shift, not with a confrontation, but with a single, undeniable message. A ripple moves through the digital world as a tweet appears. Security stopped the event organizer at her own summit. Guess who? The post includes a photo of Brielle's badge, her name clear, her role undeniable. Within minutes, the hashtag "Let Her Lead" surges, picked up by attendees, staff, and strangers alike. News outlets begin to share the story, headlines multiplying across screens in the lobby and beyond. Derek sits in the break room, phone buzzing with notifications. He scrolls, face paling as he reads the comments, some angry, others incredulous. A colleague enters, glances at Derek's screen, and quietly leaves, avoiding his eyes. The administrative assistant watches the trending topic from her desk, her hands trembling as she realizes the reach of the story. In the hotel's back office, management huddles around a laptop, reading the viral thread. The director's jaw tightens, aware that the usual strategies of denial and delay will not work this time. Staff whisper in hallways, some relieved, others anxious about what comes next. Shanice, at the concierge desk, refreshes her feed, a small smile breaking through as she sees voices rising in support of Brielle. Brielle herself sits in her room, phone lighting up with messages from colleagues, friends, and even strangers, who share their own stories. She feels the collective momentum, the sense that her quiet resistance has sparked something larger. The isolation of her experience dissolves as it becomes part of a chorus demanding change. As the day unfolds, the hotel's polished image is replaced by a flood of public scrutiny. The world is watching now, and the silence that once protected. The system is broken. The balance of power has shifted, not with a confrontation in a boardroom, but with a single undeniable truth shared for all to see. Bright lights flood the boardroom, cameras positioned at every angle as the hotel's leadership gathers for a hastily arranged press conference. The air is thick with carefully rehearsed statements and the faint scent of nervous anticipation. Brielle sits at the head of the table, posture composed, her presence a quiet anchor amid the swirl of activity. Derek occupies a seat near the far wall, shoulders hunched, his gaze fixed on the polished surface in front of him. Board members exchange clipped greetings, their smiles tight, eyes flicking to the cameras before settling on their notes. The director clears his throat, launching into a speech about the hotel's commitment to diversity and inclusion. His words ring hollow, each phrase carefully chosen to deflect rather than address the truth. Reporters jot down quotes, their pens scratching across notepads, some arching brows at the disconnect between rhetoric and reality. A communications officer stands by the door, earpiece in place, scanning the room for signs of trouble. An assistant adjusts a microphone, hands trembling slightly as she catches Brielle's eye. The tension is palpable, the performance of accountability on full display. Brielle remains silent, her expression unreadable. She watches as the board members nod in agreement with the director's platitudes, their approval choreographed for the cameras. Derek shifts in his seat, the weight of scrutiny pressing down on him. Across the room, a junior manager fidgets, with a stack of press packets, glancing nervously at the assembled media. As the director's speech winds down, the cameras linger on Brielle, capturing the contrast between her calm resolve and the board's strained composure. The scene is set for a reckoning, the hollow promises of the past exposed beneath the glare of public attention. The boardroom, once a fortress of power, now feels fragile, its authority tested by the simple presence of truth. The director's speech fades, replaced by a hush as all eyes turn to Brielle. She sits unmoving, hands folded neatly, her gaze steady. The camera's focus is hungry for a reaction. Board members glance at one another, waiting for her to respond. Brielle's voice, when it comes, is even and clear, carrying through the room without force. "This isn't recent," she says, her words deliberate. "It's routine." The statement lands with quiet force, slicing through the practiced language that filled the room moments before. A reporter lowers her pen, attention sharpened. The director shifts uncomfortably, his fingers tracing the edge of his notepad. Brielle opens a folder, sliding documents across the table. "These are not isolated incidents," she continues, her tone unwavering. "They are patterns. The evidence is undeniable. Emails, logs, and testimonies laid out in plain view." A junior board member leans forward, brow furrowed as he reads. The communications officer's jaw tightens, realizing the narrative is slipping out of control. Derek's eyes flick up, meeting Brielle's for a heartbeat before darting away. His confidence, once so certain, now appears brittle. Across the table, an executive coughs, breaking the tension but not the impact of Brielle's words. The cameras catch every detail, the tightening of shoulders, the nervous tapping of a pen, the subtle exchange of glances among the leadership. Brielle's calm is unyielding, her presence a counterpoint to the board's discomfort. As the room absorbs her statement, the old defenses falter. The truth, spoken plainly, leaves no room for denial. The boardroom, designed for control, now feels exposed. Brielle's measured words linger, a quiet challenge that cannot be brushed aside. The reckoning moves forward, one truth at a time. A heavy pause follows Brielle's statement, the boardroom tense with expectation. All eyes shift to Derek as the director gestures for him to speak. Derek's fingers clench the edge of the table, knuckles paling. He clears his throat, voice barely above a whisper at first. I thought I was following orders," he manages, the words stumbling out unevenly. The cameras zoom in, capturing the uncertainty etched across his face. His uniform, once a symbol of authority, now feels ill-fitting, the badge on his chest a reminder of choices made. He glances at the documents Brielle has spread out, his gaze lingering on the evidence of his actions. A bead of sweat traces a path down his temple. A board member leans back, arms crossed, skepticism plain. The communications officer scribbles a note, lips pressed tight. Derek's voice cracks as he tries to explain. It was always just standard practice. I never meant to. He falters, unable to finish the sentence. Across the table, a junior manager shifts uncomfortably, eyes flicking from Derek to Brielle. The silence grows, broken only by the faint hum of the overhead lights. Brielle's expression remains unchanged, her focus unwavering. She does not interrupt. She does not offer comfort. Derek's shoulders sag, the weight of the moment settling on him. He looks down, avoiding the gaze of his colleagues and the cameras. The boardroom, once a place where he felt secure, now feels hostile. Every glance a silent accusation. The director clears his throat, but the usual words of reassurance do not come. The room is left with Derek's broken admission, the sound of a man realizing too late. That routine can be another word for harm. The reckoning continues, the power in the room shifting with every word left unspoken. A hush settles as Derek's words fade, the boardroom heavy with unspoken emotion. From the back row, a guest rises, a woman in a deep blue blazer, her hands trembling slightly as she steadies herself. She clears her throat, her voice soft but unwavering. "I was told I didn't belong either," she says, eyes fixed on the table in front of her. The room turns, attention drawn to her vulnerability. She recounts her experience, arriving for a conference, being questioned at the entrance, her credentials doubted while others passed freely. Her story is brief, but the impact is immediate. A reporter's pen stills mid-sentence, the board chair's jaw tightens. The woman's voice wavers only once, but she continues, determined to be heard. Across the table, a board member shifts, discomfort etched in every movement. The communications officer glances at the director, searching for guidance that doesn't come. Brielle meets the guest's gaze, offering a small, supportive nod, a silent acknowledgement of shared experience. The woman's story ripples through the room, emboldening others. A junior staffer lowers his head, recalling similar moments. He's witnessed and never questioned. The cameras capture the raw emotion, the collective realization that exclusion is not an isolated incident, but a pattern woven into the fabric of the institution. The guest finishes, voice steady now. It's not just about one mistake, it's about being made to feel invisible. Her words linger, a quiet indictment that leaves the boardroom changed. The old script of denial and deflection no longer fits. The truth, spoken plainly and echoed by more than one voice, cannot be brushed aside. As she returns to her seat, the atmosphere shifts. The reckoning is no longer theoretical. It is personal, and it is here. The atmosphere in the boardroom grows, taut as Brielle stands, collecting the evidence she's meticulously gathered. She moves to the front, connecting her laptop to the projector. The lights dim, and the first image appears. A security log, names highlighted, omissions circled in red. The room is silent except for the soft click of the remote as Brielle advances. Through slides, emails, screenshots, copies of guest lists, and stills from security footage. Each image tells a story. Guests waved through without question. Others stopped and scrutinized. Emails marked "handled" with no resolution. Names erased from official records. The evidence is undeniable, the pattern impossible to ignore. Brielle's voice is steady as she narrates, her words concise. These are not isolated events. This is the structure. A senior board member leans forward, elbows on the table, eyes narrowed as he studies each slide. The communications officer's pen hovers, forgotten. Derek shifts in his chair, face pale, his earlier explanations shrinking under the weight of proof. The guest who spoke earlier watches, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. A junior manager glances around, gauging reactions, his discomfort clear. The director's face is set, jaw clenched as he realizes the reach of what's been exposed. The cameras record every detail, the flicker of unease, the tightening grip on a folder, the collective intake of breath as the final slide appears, a timeline, connecting every incident to the present moment. Brielle finishes, letting the silence speak for itself. The evidence is a coffin for the old excuses, each document a nail sealing away denial. The boardroom, once a place where truth was managed and contained, now feels like a witness box. The reckoning is no longer a possibility. It is an unavoidable reality, and everyone in the room feels the shift. As the last slide fades, the boardroom is gripped by a heavy stillness. All eyes turn to Brielle, waiting for her to raise her voice, to demand or accuse. Instead, she stands quietly, her presence commanding without force. She looks around the table, meeting each gaze in turn, her expression resolute. "There's no need to yell," Brielle says, her tone calm but unwavering. "The truth is loud enough." The words settle over the room, more powerful than any outburst. A junior board member lowers his pen. The director's fingers tighten around his water glass. The communications officer shifts in her seat, glancing at the evidence piled in front of her. Derek sits motionless, his earlier bravado replaced by a hollow stare. The guest in the blue blazer nods slightly, her eyes shining with quiet affirmation. The cameras pan across the faces of the leadership, capturing the discomfort, the dawning realization that denial is no longer an option. Brielle continues, her voice steady. "You've seen the pattern. You know what's been allowed to happen. The only question now is what you'll do about it." She doesn't plead or threaten. The expectation for action is clear, woven into every word. A senior executive clears his throat, but finds nothing to say. The board chair, usually quick, to deflect can only nod, lips pressed into a thin line. The maintenance worker outside the glass wall pauses, mop in hand, sensing the shift in the air. Brielle gathers her papers, her movements unhurried. The boardroom feels transformed, its usual power dynamics upended by the force of quiet conviction. The truth, spoken without volume, reverberates through the space, leaving no refuge for avoidance. The reckoning is here, and it is unmistakable. A tense pause lingers as Brielle's words fade, the boardroom charged with anticipation. The director clears his throat, glancing around the table. "We need to vote," he announces, voice subdued. One by one, board members raise their hands, some slowly, others with visible reluctance. The motion passes. Derek is suspended. The hotel will issue a public apology, and Brielle is offered a new advisory role. The decision lands with a strange mix of finality and incompleteness. The board chair avoids Brielle's eyes, focusing instead on the paperwork in front of her. A junior board member hesitates, hand hovering in the air before committing. The communications officer scribbles notes, her face unreadable. Derek sits motionless, the reality of the outcome settling in. His authority, once unchallenged, is gone. The guest in the blue blazer glances at Brielle, a faint smile of solidarity passing between them. Across the room, the maintenance worker resumes mopping, his movements slow and deliberate. Brielle listens as the director recites the official statement, his words careful and practiced. The apology is formal, the promise of change vague. She accepts the advisory offer with a nod, her expression guarded. She knows the vote is just the beginning, a gesture that may change little, but signals a shift that cannot be undone. The cameras capture the moment, broadcasting the board's decision to a wider audience. For some, it is a small victory. For others, an overdue reckoning. The boardroom, once a fortress of certainty, now feels exposed, its authority forever altered. As the meeting adjourns, the usual clatter of chairs is replaced by a quiet sense of upheaval. The vote changed nothing for those who wanted more, and everything for those who believed change was impossible. The reckoning moves forward, one raised hand at a time. The meeting ends, and people begin to file out, voices hushed, glances averted. Derek remains seated for a moment, shoulders slumped, hands resting uselessly in his lap. He finally stands, the scrape of his chair loud in the quiet room. He gathers his things, movements stiff, and heads for the door. The cameras follow his progress, lenses catching the tension in his jaw and the uncertainty in his eyes. As Derek walks down the corridor, staff step aside, some offering brief nods, others pretending to be engrossed in their tasks. Shanice, now at the front desk, glances up as he passes. Their eyes meet for a fleeting second. She doesn't smile or frown, just watches, her expression unreadable. The bellhop, waiting with a luggage cart, shifts his weight, gaze fixed on the floor. Derek's footsteps echo down the marble hallway, each step slower than the last. He passes a display of framed awards and event photos, his own image reflected back at him in the glass. The reflection is distorted, a reminder of how quickly reputation can change. A junior manager stands by the elevator holding the door open without a word. Derek enters, offering a curt nod, but the gesture is not returned. The elevator doors close, leaving Derek alone with his thoughts. He stares at his own distorted reflection in the polished metal, the weight of the day settling on his shoulders. The ride is brief, but the silence inside feels endless. When the doors open, Derek steps out into the lobby. The space is busy, but he moves unnoticed, just another man in a suit. As he exits the hotel, the automatic doors slide shut behind him, sealing away the chapter he once controlled. The reckoning is complete. His final walk is both an ending and a warning. The boardroom empties, leaving Brielle alone with her thoughts and a stack of new documents. She glances at the advisory contract offered in the wake of the vote, the hotel's letterhead crisp at the top. She reads the terms, noting the vague promises and ceremonial language. Instead of signing, she places the contract aside and writes her own list of demands, transparent guest logs, mandatory staff training, and a new system for addressing complaints. Her handwriting is steady, each point clear and non-negotiable. A senior executive returns expecting her signature. Brielle slides her list across the table. "These are my conditions," she says quietly. The executive reads, brow furrowing, then looks up. "You're serious about all of this?" Brielle's answer is a calm, unwavering nod. The cameras, still lingering in the hallway, catch the moment of negotiation. Outside the boardroom, staff gather in small groups, whispering about the outcome. Shanice, now promoted to front desk manager, offers Brielle a smile of genuine respect as she passes. The maintenance worker from earlier gives a subtle thumbs up, a small but meaningful show of support. The executive returns with the board chair, who reviews Brielle's demands. After a brief, tense discussion, they agree. "You'll have what you need," the chair concedes, voice subdued. Brielle accepts, her victory quiet but absolute. This is not a title for show. It is a mandate for real change. As she leaves the boardroom, Brielle's steps are measured, her presence unmistakable. The cameras capture her exit, the image of a woman who refused to settle for empty promises. The old fight continues, but this time she leads on her own terms. The victory is not loud, but it is lasting. The boardroom sits empty, chairs pushed back in uneven rows, the air still charged from what transpired. Brielle gathers her files, sliding them into a worn leather bag. The usual post-meeting chatter is absent. Instead, a deep quiet lingers, broken only by the soft hum of the building's ventilation. She pauses at the doorway, glancing back at the polished table, where so many decisions were once made behind closed doors. Down the hall, Shanice leans in the doorway of her new office, offering Brielle a warm, knowing smile. Their eyes meet for a moment, a silent exchange of gratitude and encouragement. The maintenance worker sweeps up confetti remnants from the earlier press conference, his broom moving in slow, deliberate arcs. He nods as Brielle passes, a gesture of solidarity that needs no words. Derek's vacant chair remains slightly askew, a quiet reminder of the abrupt shift in power. The communications officer lingers by the window, staring out at the city, lost in thought. A junior staffer collects stray coffee cups, moving quietly, as if not to disturb the fragile peace that settled over the space. Brielle walks the corridor, her footsteps soft on the carpet. The echoes of the day's reckoning follow her, but so does a sense of possibility. The walls, once witnesses to avoidance and denial, now feel open, receptive. The silence is not emptiness, but a pause before something new. As she steps into the elevator, Brielle exhales, the weight of the day lifting just enough to let hope in. The doors close gently, sealing away the old order. In the quiet after the storm, change takes root, not in applause, but in the small, steady acts that will define what comes next. Derek sits alone in a bustling coffee shop tucked into a corner near the window. The morning rush swirls around him, baristas calling out names, customers chatting, the hiss of steaming milk. But he feels apart from it all. He watches as people receive their orders, the barista's easy smile reserved for everyone else. When his turn finally comes, the barista slides his cup across the counter without a glance, moving on to the next customer with practiced cheer. He stirs his coffee, hands unsteady, eyes fixed on the screen of his phone. News alerts flash. Headlines about the hotel, the boardroom vote, his own name buried in the coverage. Faces in the shop flicker with recognition, a few glance his way, then quickly look away. The isolation is sharper than any reprimand. A young woman at a nearby table whispers to her friend, and Derek catches the words, "That's him," before her voice drops. He scrolls through a flood of messages, some supportive, most not. Former colleagues are silent. The sense of belonging he once felt has vanished, replaced by a cold awareness that his actions are now public record. He tries to focus on the newspaper in front of him, but the words blur, his mind replaying the events of the boardroom. A man in a suit enters, orders, and receives his coffee with a nod and a smile. Derek remembers when that easy acceptance was his, when his presence commanded respect instead of avoidance. Now he is overlooked, a cautionary tale in the background of other people's mornings. As he sips his coffee, Derek realizes that the true cost of exposure is not just professional, it is personal, woven into every interaction, every averted gaze. The world has moved on, and he is left to reckon with what remains. Derek leaves the coffee shop, clutching his cup as he steps onto the sidewalk. The city feels different now. Every street corner, every passing face seems to carry a new kind of scrutiny. As he walks, he senses eyes lingering on him, conversations dipping in volume as he approaches. A group of office workers cross to the opposite side of the street, their laughter fading to uneasy silence. Derek's grip tightens on his coffee, knuckles white against the paper cup. A mother hurries her daughter along, glancing at Derek before steering clear. The little girl tugs at her mother's sleeve, whispering, "That's the man from the video." The words sting, sharper than any headline. Derek keeps his head down, but the weight of recognition presses on him with every step. He passes a newsstand, his own blurred image staring back from the front page. The vendor looks up, recognition flickering in his eyes, but says nothing. Derek's footsteps sound louder than usual, echoing off glass storefronts and concrete. He remembers a time when he moved through these streets unnoticed, just another face in the crowd. Now every glance feels loaded, every gesture a silent verdict. A former colleague spots him from across the intersection, hesitates, then turns away, pretending to check his phone. Derek's chest tightens. The city, once familiar and welcoming, has become a maze of sidelong glances and closed doors. As he rounds the corner to his apartment, Derek realizes that the consequences of his actions are inescapable. The world sees him differently now, and there is no way back to anonymity. Each step home is heavier than the last, the isolation settling in for good. Brielle moves through the hotel's corridors, her presence drawing nods and respectful greetings from staff who once looked past her. The air feels lighter, the tension that used to cling to every interaction now replaced by a sense of possibility. Shanice, newly promoted to front desk manager, beams as Brielle passes, her pride unmistakable in the way she stands taller behind the counter. Housekeepers pause in their work to offer quiet smiles, and a maintenance worker gives a discreet thumbs up as he polishes a brass fixture. Even the executive chef, usually reserved, steps out of the kitchen to say, "Congratulations, Dr. Carter." The words are simple, but the sincerity in his tone is new. Brielle acknowledges each gesture with a nod, or a soft, "Thank you," her dignity intact, and her authority finally recognized. The walls, once witnesses to her exclusion, now echo with the subtle affirmation of her leadership. Staff who once avoided her gaze now meet her eyes, their respect genuine and unforced. A junior staffer, previously hesitant, approaches to ask for advice about an upcoming event. "I'd really appreciate your input," she says, voice steady. Brielle listens, offering encouragement and guidance, her influence quietly shaping the next generation of leaders. Shanice watches from the lobby, her expression a mix of admiration and gratitude. The transformation is not loud, but it is unmistakable. Brielle's journey through these hallways is a quiet revolution, felt in every handshake, every smile, every door held open. As she enters the conference room for her first official meeting, in her new role, Brielle pauses, taking in the changed atmosphere. Her triumph is not marked by applause or fanfare, but by the everyday respect that now greets her at every turn. Derek sits at his kitchen table, the morning sun casting pale rectangles across a stack of unopened mail. Among the bills and advertisements is an envelope bearing the hotel's logo. He hesitates, then tears it open, eyes scanning the formal language. "We wish you the best in your future endeavors." The words are cold, final, and unmistakable. Derek's hand trembles as he folds the letter, its weight heavier than he expected. He stands and moves to the trash can, holding the letter for a moment before dropping it in. The paper lands on top of yesterday's news, headlines barely visible, beneath the hotel's crisp letterhead. The gesture is small, but it marks the end of something he once took for granted. The kitchen is silent except for the distant hum of traffic and the soft clink of the trash can lid closing. Derek glances around his apartment, the familiar space suddenly foreign. The framed certificate on the wall feels hollow now, its significance erased by a single sheet of paper. He pours himself a cup of coffee, but the taste is flat, the ritual empty. His phone buzzes with a calendar reminder for a shift he'll never work again. Outside, neighbors pass by his window, their faces turned away. The world continues, indifferent to his loss. Derek sits back down, staring at the trash, the letter, already half buried. The finality of it settles in. Not just the end of a job, but the closing of a chapter defined by authority and routine. He exhales, a long, slow breath, the sound filling the quiet room. The era of certainty and comfort is over, replaced by uncertainty and regret. The letter in the trash is more than a dismissal. It is the tangible proof that actions have consequences, and some doors close forever. The ballroom is filled with soft conversation as guests settle into their seats for the summit's opening session. Brielle stands backstage, her notes in hand, listening as her name is announced. She steps into the light, applause greeting her with genuine warmth. The stage feels different now, no longer a place of doubt, but of belonging. She surveys the audience, spotting familiar faces. Shanice near the front, staff and colleagues scattered throughout, their expressions proud and attentive. Brielle begins, her voice steady and clear. She speaks of persistence, of the work it took to reach this moment, and of the people who quietly supported her along the way. "Change," she says, "doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes it's just a hand reaching out in welcome." The words resonate, drawing nods and thoughtful silence from the crowd. She shares stories, not just her own, but those entrusted to her by others. Each account is brief but powerful. A guest turned away, a staff member overlooked, a leader who finally listened. The room is hushed, the usual distractions forgotten. Even the hotel's executives, seated at the back, seem moved by the honesty in her words. A young volunteer approaches the stage with a question, her voice trembling with hope. Brielle answers with encouragement, her presence reassuring. The exchange is small, but it ripples outward, inspiring others to speak up and take part. As Brielle concludes, the applause is sustained, not for spectacle but for substance. She leaves the stage knowing her voice will not fade when the lights dim. The summit continues, but something fundamental has shifted. Her story, and the stories she carries, are now part of the hotel's legacy. A legacy rewritten by dignity, courage, and the quiet power of truth. In a bright conference room, hotel leadership gathers around a long table as new policies are introduced. The atmosphere is cautious but attentive. Printed agendas outline changes, mandatory bias training, transparent hiring practices, and a formal process for addressing complaints. Staff from every department fill the seats, some exchanging skeptical glances, others nodding with relief. Human Resources Manager stands at the front, explaining the new procedures. "This isn't just a formality," she says, voice steady. "It's a commitment to doing better." She invites questions, and a housekeeper raises her hand, asking how complaints will be handled differently. The manager answers directly, promising accountability and follow-through. The staff listens, weighing her words against past experiences. Brielle sits near the window, observing the room. She notes the way junior employees lean forward, hopeful, while a few long-tenured supervisors cross their arms, wary of change. Shanice, now a department head, offers practical suggestions for improving guest check-in. Her ideas are met with genuine consideration, a marked shift from previous meetings. A chef from the kitchen speaks up, sharing a story of a colleague who was once overlooked for promotion. The conversation grows, staff members contributing their perspectives. The old hierarchy gives way to a more inclusive dialogue, each voice finding space. The meeting ends with a group commitment. Everyone signs a pledge to uphold the new standards. The HR manager collects the signatures, a visible record of the promise made. As people file out, the mood is lighter, the sense of possibility real. Brielle lingers, watching as the last staff member leaves. The system, once rigid and resistant, has begun to bend toward justice. The changes are incremental, but they are real. The hotel's foundation is shifting, one policy and one conversation at a time. Morning sunlight pours through the hotels, tall windows illuminating the lobby in a way that feels new. The marble floor, once a stage for exclusion, now reflects a diverse crowd, guests of every background chatting, laughing, and moving freely. The front desk buzzes with activity, Shanice greeting arrivals with genuine warmth, her confidence evident. In every interaction, a bellhop helps a family with their bags, pausing to offer directions in Spanish to a visitor who smiles in gratitude. The concierge answers questions from a group of international guests, her tone welcoming and patient. The air is filled with the gentle hum of conversation, a far cry from the strained quiet that once dominated the space. Brielle enters the lobby, her presence met with nods and smiles from staff and guests alike. She exchanges a few words with a housekeeper, who thanks her for listening and for the changes that have made a difference. Even the hotel's executives, passing through on their way to a meeting, offer greetings that are respectful, not just polite. A young guest snaps a photo of the sunlit lobby, capturing the energy and openness that now define the space. The transformation is subtle but unmistakable. Barriers have fallen, replaced by a sense of shared belonging. The marble, once cold and indifferent, now gleams with possibility. As Brielle pauses to take it all in, she notices the small details that signal real progress. A new accessibility sign at the entrance, a multilingual welcome banner, staff badges that read, "Here to help, here to listen." The lobby, once a symbol of exclusion, has become a testament to resilience and the quiet power of change. She smiles, knowing the work is ongoing, but also knowing that the foundation has been laid. The lobby now reflects everyone, and the future feels brighter with every step. As evening settles over the hotel, the lobby grows quiet, the day's bustle replaced by a gentle calm. Brielle walks through the now familiar space, her footsteps soft on the marble. Most guests have retired to their rooms and staff finish their final rounds, voices low and unhurried. Shanice helps a nervous traveler at the front desk, her patience and kindness on full display. The guest offers a grateful smile, the moment passing without fanfare. A housekeeper wipes down a table near the window, pausing to nod at Brielle. There's no applause, no grand gesture, just a shared understanding that things are different now. The maintenance worker adjusts a new accessibility sign, ensuring it's perfectly straight, his pride quiet but unmistakable. Brielle pauses near the entrance, watching as a family checks in, their welcome seamless and warm. She reflects on the journey that brought them here, the resistance, the reckoning, the slow but steady transformation. The lobby, once a place of scrutiny and exclusion, now feels open, safe, and genuinely welcoming. She exchanges a few quiet words with Shanice, both women aware that justice often arrives not with noise, but with the soft persistence of daily acts. The changes are woven into the fabric of the hotel, in the way staff greet guests, in the policies that protect dignity, in the subtle respect that fills the air. As Brielle turns to leave, she glances back at the marble floor, now aglow with the last light of day. The echoes of injustice have faded, replaced by the gentle assurance of progress. Justice, she knows, does not need applause to endure. It lives in every whisper of change, every small kindness, every moment where dignity is quietly restored.